I could add her once she joins. It's up to you.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Box. We're having regular session starting now. May I please have us say the flag salute?
Sure.
Ready? Begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I have nothing at the present time to report out from closed session. Public communication, agenda and non-agenda items. Any person wishing to comment on agenda and non-agenda items may do so. Please use the chat option on Zoom and type in your name, residence address, and topic that you would like to speak about. If there are technical difficulties, please email your questions to nfox@nclusd.k12.ca.us. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. California law prohibits the school board from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the school board. Per board policy BB 9323, individual speakers may be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Do we have anyone at the present time? Okay, thank you. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll
second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Rose is not present at this time. Okay. Discussion items. Planning for distance learning. And Mr. Philpott, I think I'm going to defer to you because.
Okay. Well, and I may defer to some of our staff periodically. What we really wanted to do is just kind of go over a little bit more of kind of why we're doing distance learning, which obviously is because, I mean, the governor made an executive order that any county that was on their watch list, he insisted that distance learning basically be done at in those counties. To get off of it, it's pretty onerous. It requires basically kind of in a negative in terms of COVID positive cases for a period of 14 days. I looked this morning. Right now we're at plus 45% actually in terms of, so we're kind of going the wrong way still, although it is declining on a daily basis. So eventually it's going to catch up, but it's not appearing that it's catching up maybe fast enough. And so I'm a little concerned that, and I would actually say that it looks like we may not be coming back until after winter break, but that's just a guess. We'll have to play this by, unfortunately, it's week by week as we go along. So, so one of the things that we went over last week with you is the lot of the planning that went through on the distance learning plans that were kind of guidelines by grade bands, if you will. Those are all posted on the website and can be accessed there. The ones that we have added just recently are Alt Ed for covering both West Side and also Foothill. And also then there is a tab actually there for special ed. So the way we're going to be getting a lot of information out is that there's going to be some community meetings that are coming up very soon. And then we're sending that information out to parents through social media, Class Dojo, and Parent Square as well. But the biggest difference between distance learning in the spring and now is, and I'm going to steal this from Mr. Pruitt, who I think kind of gave this in his in his lesson today, and that is that the spring really was an emergency response. Although I think we did very well in responding very quickly to going remote on March 19th. It was really kind of an emergency response. We thought that basically we were going to be coming back by spring. That didn't happen. We kept going on, 1 week at a time, and then finally it was decided we weren't going to come back at all until this year. Whereas now the distance learning is really more planned, and it's really robust in the sense of actually a meld of synchronous simulcast learning presentations with asynchronous, which is basically recorded lessons. And so that's important to kind of know. And the reason I say that is because originally when we thought we were coming back 100% traditional, we offered actually to parents the opportunity to do what we at the time we were calling independent study. That was so that we knew that there were some parents actually that even though we were coming back and opening up, they were going to not feel very comfortable sending their child because of the ongoing spiking of cases in the county. And so we offered that. It really wasn't a traditional independent study. It looked pretty much like what we're actually doing, what we're doing right now. We're going to be starting here next week, and that is distance learning, whereby there's synchronous, there's asynchronous. Because traditional independent study really is packet work where a student completes it, meets with their teacher, with one teacher for 1 hour a week, and goes over any questions and turns it in. It's pretty much that's all it is. That's not really a very good education, in our opinion. We don't recommend that. But what we did do is that last week we sent out a message from me that basically talked about why we went into distance learning, what you can kind of expect. When we do return, it's probably going to be a phase-in approach. But what I also said is that although we're not honoring this request for independent study, if you will, at this time, because there were about 85 families, I think, that applied for it. Really, the reason why we're not honoring is because they're going to get something better really with the distance learning, and it's going to act the same way. So those synchronous lessons that teachers are going to have during the day are going to be recorded so that students, if they, for whatever, miss it because of illness or because maybe they're having to supervise younger siblings or they're not able to connect for a while or something, they're able to actually go back and see those synchronous lessons that are actually recorded. So the best way to kind of describe it, and I know some of us have talked about this before, kind of like saying, well, we're going to put you on YouTube to see your teacher instead, and then we're going to check in. And we're going to check in through some office hours with those students for that purpose. So really, a traditional independent study program really is not appropriate, and it's not going to be at this point. Those folks who actually did fill out that application, we will honor that application when we do return to traditional attendance, but it will probably look a little bit more like we're going to call it a virtual learning academy, which again be more robust than the independent study that you normally would see with packets, but would be an alternative to coming back traditionally if the parent still is feeling like it's not a safe environment. But granted, we're putting in a lot of safety protocols for this point. So I think minds might change by that time anyway. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood the difference on that, and that our staff has spent a lot of time, and our teachers are already starting to spend time on individual lessons. I saw several that have actually already planned a full week out. So that's happening. So I actually, the other thing I want to point out is that some people have asked, well, why does staff need to work at their respective sites? Why do we want them back? First off, I want to tell you that we've worked on a memorandum of understanding with our classified staff. That's been signed. We're currently working on one which is very close to be signing actually with the teachers union. And everybody agrees that it's best actually to come back to the sites. Now we realize there are some accommodations that got to be made because of issues maybe in their home, people that they have to maybe care for or something, so they're not able to actually come in per se. And so we're working through that, but that's really a handful of people at this point. I think it's about 5 actually that we're working with on that. But it's very important for them to come into our sites because all those resources that we want our teachers to be using with our students are right there in their classroom. And the classroom is a safe environment where only the teacher will be in there. Basically, it's already been sanitized, and we'll talk a little bit later about kind of what we're doing with those safety protocols. But if at this point, what I'd like to do is actually ask Mrs. Betancourt, our director of CNI, to talk a little bit about the teacher workshops we've had, which a lot of our veteran teachers have attended, and also if you could talk about the community information sessions that are coming up real soon. Ms. Betancourt?
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. We started today with our new teacher workshops, and we're also inviting any teachers in the district who may need some additional training or support in some of the areas that we identified to attend. We got great attendance today at all of the workshops. We offered a variety of workshops today, from Mr. Pruitt doing a workshop for the secondary teachers on grading, just even going over our Power School system and gradebook and how teachers use that, to Mrs. Briones had a full house too, with up to 72 staff members, I think, teachers and administrators on using Zoom for in their daily instruction. We're also offering some workshops on some of our curriculum. So for example, elementary teachers will be able to, where we've divided them K2 and 3-5, and they'll receive some support from Mrs. Vargas and Mrs. Arteaga on our benchmark curriculum. So we've got a full 2 days. We have Linda Jordan visiting with us, and she's going to be doing some workshops on, she did one today with Mr. Philpott on our 3 R's, relationships, rigor, and relevance, relevant instruction. And then she will also be working tomorrow with, or providing 2 workshops tomorrow on getting started with distance learning and developing relationships with distance learning. Our goal is to take up a lot of the things that the teachers know already in their daily in-person instruction and to help them transition that to a distance learning model, so that we can continue to provide instruction that meets their needs, that's rigorous, that's relevant, but we just have to present it in a different way. And I think that's something we're all gonna work on and learn together. As far as our parent sessions, we're offering some parent information sessions in both English and Spanish. And at this point, we're focusing on 3 areas that that have kind of come out in some of the thought exchanges Mr. Philpott has done, and just in parent feedback that have come out of as areas of concern or where there's a lot of questions. And the first one is that will be coming up on Wednesday, and I have I share with Nancy and Mr. Philpott a schedule that we can get to you, will be distance learning for dual language immersion. So we want to address specific questions that parents may have about their kids who are in DLI. We know there are going to be challenges. Mrs. Vargas, Mr. Cope, and Mrs. Arteaga are working together. They've developed a presentation, and we've also developed a plan for both YOLO and the elementary school and Von Renner. So that will be, that'll be presented 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon in English, and 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon in Spanish. We're trying to offer a variety of times for parents so that we can find something that fits their schedule. Then we're also going to offer on Thursday 4 sessions. It'll be 4 sessions again, 2 in English and 2 in Spanish, just an overview of distance learning for all parents. So that'll cover some of the topics that Mr. Philpott has already discussed: our instruction, what does that look like, grading, attendance, how will we address social emotional support for students. And those will be offered again in both languages, English and Spanish, and at 2 different times each. And then the first week of school on the 12th, we'll be offering parent workshops that are focused in on how we're going to address the needs of our special education students. And we have developed, along with the support from Alyssa Souza and Ryan Bullard, we developed a plan for our special education students that details more extensively this time. In the spring, like Mr. Philpott said, we kind of went out on an emergency, but we have a plan where we're actually going to be providing services using a teletherapy model and also resource support. So they'll get their speech, they'll get their counseling that's needed per their IEP, and they'll get their academic support per their IEP. So we'll be working on that and meeting with parents to kind of give them an overview of how we'll address their needs. So we're really trying to alleviate some of the parent concerns, answer some of their questions, and just keep communication open. Anything else, Mr. Philpott?
Yeah, actually, there's Mr. Wallace had a good question. I'm assuming that we're recording these sessions.
They're all set to be automatically recorded. We're going to be using the same format you use for a board meeting, so it'll be a webinar format. We're going to try to leave at least 15 to 20 minutes in to answer parent questions as best we can. We'll have panelists available. So for example, for the distance learning workshop, that covers just basically a general overview. Each of the site administrators will be a panelist. That way, if there are some questions that are specific to elementary or specific to secondary, I want them to be able to answer for their sites. And for the DLI, we will also have some actual DLI teachers because we've included them in every session to also kind of reassure parents and answer some of their questions. I think the more information we can give parents and alleviate some of their concerns and fears, the more of a partnership this will become, and the easier it will be for us to educate their kids.
That sounds really good, Mrs. Betancourt.
Are there any other questions from the board for
No.
Mrs. Betancourt?
There's one from Paul.
No, I think he answered that one.
There's one from Paul.
Yeah.
There's one from Paul. Yeah.
Paul, you're
Muted.
You're muted.
Need to unmute.
Yeah, no, she answered my question in the from when I posted it in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions from Mrs. Betancourt, I want to change just a little bit of subject here, Anya, and that is that we've really spent a lot of time on safety protocols. There's a lot of protocols are going out and stuff for staff, and then we prepare basically some things that are important to make sure that the people are safe. Today, Matt Vargas and Chris Madanza and I went out to 4 of our sites, Barrington, Von Renner, Hunt, and OHS to meet with their principal and some additional staff, including their heads custodian and custodians. And Matt, I'm going to ask you if you could to just briefly kind of go over some of the things that you talked about, which I think were of value to ensuring that our staff are safe.
Thank you, Mr. Philpott, and good evening, everybody. Today's meeting focused on health and safety as the priority of the agenda. We, first of all, began to talk about the importance of PPE for our staff who are going to be in the trenches, cleaning not only classrooms, but staff rooms and commune areas that are going to be shared by our educators that are returning to the classroom. And so, though that was a large focus, we also talked about the CDC guidelines in maintaining clean and healthy schools throughout the school year. And for us, the school year really hasn't stopped. We've continued to maintain our classrooms. They've since been sanitized. We have restrooms ready to go as if we were going to open tomorrow. And I think the main goal now is that we want to make sure all of our teaching staff feel that they can come back to a safe and clean learning environment. But it doesn't stop there. We'll need to continue to maintain these classrooms as they're used and these commune areas. And so we really have a good plan. We have a checklist of items that the custodians will be making as a priority to focus on. Some of the high touch areas, such as copiers, staff restrooms, even phones, which we know are going to be used when teachers are reaching out to their parents. So we discussed overall cleaning, and I think the priority is really not just a safe place for our staff coming in, but our staff that's already there. So we spoke about safety in the workplace, reminding our employees to do their daily health screenings. We talked about maintaining social distancing while they're completing their tasks, and also just disinfecting shared equipment and making sure that they're keeping each other safe and that we're all working to a higher standard. So though there's a lot of difficult things to work around, one thing I will share, and I know Mr. Philpott, I think, saw this today, we really do have a great team of custodial and maintenance staff who understand the importance of maintaining our school facilities. Whether there's one student there or 3,000 students there, the bottom line is these schools provide an excellent education for our students. And even if it's remotely, teachers working in their classrooms have the right to feel safe and secure, and that's what we plan to continue. So these trainings really began back in March when we shut down, because we actually started to talk about how can we continue to maintain our schools though they were closed. The truth is we continue to work as if we were going to open the next day. And so we're ready for the next day. And when tomorrow comes, if anything new comes up, any new guidelines from the CDC, we'll do additional trainings to make sure our staff is up to date on those protocols. And like I would like to share, the commitment of our staff is amazing. They are dedicated to this district, and I'm honored to be a part of the team.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, would you mind speaking to the upgrade in the HVAC filters that will be installed very soon?
Yes, the CDC guidelines are really kind of maximizing the requirement to use the highest quality filter on the market, which is actually a MERV 13. You know, we had what we thought was a really good standard in a MERV 8, and that filter is a great 3-month filter. The MERV 13 it's almost double the efficiency. And so we're catching not just particulates now, we can catch viruses in these filters, dispose of that filter, and then replace it with one that can once again do that job. So there is a cost to this, and we've looked at our maintenance budget. I know with the help of our CBO, Carolyn, we've really looked at making this a priority. It's almost one of those, you just have to do it right. So we are moving forward with that upgrade. It's actually beginning this week, and it'll start at our areas like, you know, the main offices and rooms where we know we have shared HVAC systems. So that is an upgrade that we're doing not just for the CDC guidelines, but I think it's imperative that we have the best filters possible in our HVAC systems.
I also want to point out that we're going to be visiting the other sites that we weren't able to get to, Benita, Yolo, McConnell Center, and M&O office and SSC tomorrow. Same thing. I think Mrs. Hurst has a question.
Yes. Matt, how often will those filters be changed, those new ones?
Okay, so our current contract right now calls for an every 3 month change. But technically, there's only 3 changes because we negotiate a 9-month school year. Keep in mind, we're not normally in school for 12 months. So we had our filters changed back in June, or the 1st of June. So we're going to begin our first round now and do a cycle of every 3 months. And so that'll basically take us till June of next year, of 2021.
Do you do the changing, Matt, or does a company do it?
That's a great question, Ms. Conforti. We have a contract with Sawyer Smart Energy that falls under the PG&E HVAC program. And the way the program works is we basically pay for one of the 3 changes. PG&E rebates us for the other 2, with the concept being they know that we conserve energy when we're providing our preventative maintenance on a routine schedule. So we've committed to that schedule, and they commit to rebating us for 2 of the 3 changes. So we're paying about 33% of what we paid prior to 2015.
Oh, thank you. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from Mr. Vargas regarding our safety protocols?
No, I just have a comment. Matt saved me Friday night. I got all tangled up in the speaker cables at graduation, and they ended that. And then trying to leave the football field in my old people's scooter, I went behind the tennis courts, and at that point I found out I had no lights on my scooter. So I hit a big hole, dropped my grabber, came back the next morning, it was gone, but Matt had found it and saved it for me. So he delivered it today. I appreciate that. But I
You're very-
will say
You're welcome.
that the schools really, we haven't been in class since last March, but the custodians kept the upkeep.
Mhm.
You know, I've cruised YOLO a couple times, and the appearances of all the schools on the outside is like, hey, nothing changed. The grass is mowed, everything's green, it's clean, there's no spider webs. I've been pretty impressed with the maintenance. I mean, it would be easy just to say, shut the door, we'll come back when the kids are back. But the schools look good, and you know, that's pride in the workmanship of all the custodial staff. So give them thanks from me at least.
I will share that with the team. Thank you, Mr. Sonderly.
From all of us.
Yes.
Will do. Thank you.
You know, since Mr. Snodderly brought up YOLO, Matt, as long as you're here, would you mind just giving a very quick update on the progress, which is almost done, I believe, the new building at YOLO?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. So Thursday is going to be a great day this week because we will start the actual punch walk for the building. And the good news is the items that remain are very minor. They began today by putting up our technology, the projectors in the classroom. We have obviously HVAC, we have electrical. The classrooms have window treatments to be able to control the lighting. And so the building is actually functioning now. We do have a very important fire test on Wednesday where I believe Keith is invited as well, Keith Bowman from our Newman Fire Department. And we'll be testing the fire system and making sure the bay alarm gets the signal. That will give us the ability to occupy the building. Last week, I just put the new key cylinders in, which will coincide with all the keys at YOLO Middle School. So I'll be issuing those keys to Mrs. Smith. It'll be later this week. By Friday, she'll have the keys to issue to her staff that are going to be using those rooms. So the building is really, it's come along. You know, there's some that would say, well, you know, why isn't it finished already? There's some items that we really chose not to rush here at the end. As soon as we found out we weren't going to be, you know, opening up to students, I think the focus really moved a little more towards the workmanship, especially for all the things. So I will share the building is just about ready. Thursday will be the final, the actual punch list. And then we'll give the contractor a few days to remedy those. And then we're going to have staff moving into their new classrooms.
So we'll want to establish a time, and we'll let you know when we can do that. We're kind of a little bit of a ribbon cutting that's socially distanced and or virtual to kind of so you can see the building. It is a beautiful building.
How does that compare to how long it takes to actually close it off with DSA?
That's a great point. You know, from the point of punch walk, I've seen it as quick as 3 days and as long as 90 days, so 3 months.
Okay.
What it has a lot to do with, and it's a great question because it has a lot to do with one of the most important elements. You know, DSA signs off obviously on the structure, which is the most important element to them, but also, you know, the certification we get for the fire inspection is what really allows us to occupy. Without that occupancy permit, it almost doesn't matter what DSA says. So we're really Wednesday, that'll be a key day. And then once that is submitted to DSA and they see that that is complete, I would estimate 30 to 45 days to be fairly accurate.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vargas. I don't know unless there's any other questions.
No, I'd like to see the inside either by, you know, film or, you know, us getting in a line 10 feet apart.
We could do that.
I think we could probably schedule a socially distanced visit. Probably might be appropriate. You have to kind of see it in person. The pictures don't really do it justice. So.
I can imagine.
Sounds great.
We'll make that arrangement for you. Thank you, Mr. Vargas. I'd like to kind of I'd like to ask Carolyn Mendoza to give you a little bit of a background of where we are with our meals, and then kind of what we serve, which is our nutrition service people just did a tremendous job, and then where we're going right now as far as we know. Carolyn?
Good evening. Let's see. I'm going to try and share my screen with you. There you go. Can you see that?
Now you're gone.
yet.
You were,
Not yet.
oh, there you are. I see you.
I don't see your
Good night.
screen.
See her,
Nice.
but we don't see,
You see the slideshow?
no.
No.
I'm having a really hard time with this. Let's see. Go back. Can you see that now?
Not
No,
yet.
we're still not seeing
No.
it. You know what? If you can't share the screen, I just want you to walk us through the numbers, which are pretty, I mean, pretty amazing. And
Sure.
just kind of go slide by slide, if you will. And
Sure.
we'll send it out to you. We'll send a copy to you.
Okay.
And we'll post it as maybe an addition to the addendum or something to the minutes.
So I wanted to kind of do a recap of 1920 for the whole year versus just the last few months since we went to distance learning. We served in the period from March 19th to the end of June. We served a total of 238,000 meals. The response was just tremendous. For the year that we just finished, we did a total of 709,000. So really, we didn't lose any pace. We had about a third of the year, or we had a quarter of the year left, and we served probably a third of the meals we did all year just in that last period.
Wow.
The participation stayed really strong all the way through June, which was amazing. We had a great month of July that we just finished. Our last serving day was Friday. And then we're taking this week off to reset for our August menu, which will start on the 11th, and our meal service will resume then. So, and starting the day after the students stopped coming to school physically, the next day we started our pickup, and we did pickups from 11 to 12 Monday through Friday at Barrington and Von Renner. And then we had a bus route provided by First Student, and the meals were prepped by the staff at YOLO. And the bus route provided us an opportunity to reach all of our students out in the rural areas, and then it also went up to Diablo Grande. And then we had a van route that went to Fisherman's Bend and Catfish Camp and Bonita and served meals there. So the precautions that we put in place back in March, we had teams of 4 people that worked 3 days per week at an assigned site. The teams always stayed together. So they worked with the same group week after week. They worked 3 days, and they worked probably about 4.5 hours. So they came in together, they left together. They used social distancing, they used gloves, which they did anyway, and then they began wearing masks when the CDC deemed that was appropriate. So the surfaces and all the equipment were sanitized at regular intervals. And during this time, all the way through the end of July, actually, we've had 0 staff reported illnesses. We've had nobody have to be tested that was working every day. We had a dedicated summer school staff in June and July. Again, the group stayed together. We didn't commingle, and we took all the same precautions. Now with school opening, we have all of our staff returning for their regular schedules at the regular sites. Some staff, we may have to adjust our start and end times, which we've negotiated with CSEA. We are going to be providing meals at curbside at each site this time, not just Von Renner and Barrington, because we want it to be convenient for students wherever they live, whatever, because their parents may have gone back to work. They may be having to walk to campus. So we want them to be able to go to whatever campus is closest to them. Orsimba will not have meals served there because we're going to use that staff to do the delivery service. So Right now, during the summer, we were able to offer free meals, breakfast, lunch, and after-school program supper. Except for July, we were not able to do supper there, but we were able to do all of those meals at one time, one pickup, and it worked really, really well. Well, all of those flexibility options and all those were through waivers, and those are have all ended. So currently, the way it looks like we're going to open is through meal applications and standard National School Lunch Program eligibility. So the Orsimba staff is going to take over the delivery route. They're going to do the rural Newman, rural Crows Landing, Diablo Grande, and then students who were transported to our sub-Ruras programs. So again, we're taking the same precautions: social distancing, gloves, masks, personal protective equipment, and daily health screenings. And then there's a continuous cycle of sanitation and proper food safety practices, which they're all certified to begin with. And then there's a specific COVID-19 training for all staff as part of their professional standards. USDA mandates that our food service employees perform a certain number of hours based on how many hours they work. They have to complete a certain number of professional development hours every year, and those are tracked. So as part of their professional standards requirement this year, we included that as well. So we've asked some support from the sites. As we get started, we have pop-up tents and tables set up to make it easier for them to distribute meals. We'll do periodic reminders of meal availability through Class Dojo and Parent Square. And then we've asked for assistance with collecting and distributing meal applications before school starts so that we can get as many qualified as we can. So the service model this year is as we begin school is going to be curbside pickup at all of the elementary schools, Yolo and Bonita, from 11 to 12, Monday through Friday. We'll do breakfast, lunch, and after school supper we'll distribute at one pickup. We did receive a waiver to do after school program meals because we will offer access to the after school program virtually to all students in the district. We will do delivery by the Orsimba staff to the rural areas, Catfish Camp, Fisherman's Bend, Crows Landing, and Diablo Grande. And we will have meals available to staff and daycare students on campus that are on campus every day. Parents and guardians may pick up the meals, but they will need the students' ID cards, which we are in the process of distributing. So we will also continue our USDA Produce Box program. We've been distributing produce boxes since May 29th. We started with about 540 boxes a week. That program was extended through August 31st, and now September 1st, the boxes are going to change, and they'll include perishable items, including a gallon of milk, 3 pounds of cheese, wow, 5 pounds of meat and or eggs, and yogurt. And so distribution will be expanded to each site. So all summer, we've done about 60,000 pounds of produce distributed into the community through this program. So we're very proud of that. And we're excited to continue it and that they beefed it up. And we're not sure how long it'll go, but we'll do it as long as we have it available. Does anybody have questions?
The new parents that are coming into our district, how are they being informed about this the same way about classes and how school through Class Dojo and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
I've only heard good responses from people that have been using it. So keeping up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. No, the staff has done a tremendous job.
And might I say that I know the seniors are very appreciative of that too.
Yes, we've fed a lot of seniors this year too.
Yes.
Probably nearly half of the meals that we did for the year came in the last quarter. And currently we're still serving between 45 and 60 seniors every day for lunch.
Yes.
Which is a huge increase from the 14 that we started a year ago.
Right.
And those
Well-
mills continue as well.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mrs. Mendoza? Well, thank you very much. We definitely, everybody I know appreciates the nutrition services. And everybody loves the food too.
Thank you.
And that's a thing.
Sure.
Good
Oh,
job.
no.
So that really kind of concludes kind of our updates for this meeting. We have another meeting on the 10th. But while we're here, are there any just general questions or anything you want to see possibly on the 10th? We do have some things we have to present on the 10th related to finances and things like that. But any other questions for tonight or anything you'd like to see on the 10th?
Randy, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
All right. Well, I think one of the things that I'd like to see, and we're obviously meeting more frequently in light of the COVID-19 crisis, but I think we need to regularly release information, even though our information is, I know it changes daily or almost daily, we still need to release information to the community about what our plans are and our hopes are for the future. Obviously, the biggest question I think for a lot of people is when are schools going to reopen in the traditional sense? I don't think any of us know. You've made a guess that it may take a long time. You've also mentioned in the past that we would try to, or may try to, phase our reopening, which I think is extremely important given that so many people in this community, their livelihood is impacted by whether or not we open these schools again for traditional learning. Otherwise, they simply are going to have to stay home and watch their kids. I'm thinking of the families that have, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, and don't have somebody who's available to take care of them. So from my point of view, we're going to have to work as hard as we can, and I'm sure we are, to reopen at the earliest opportunity, but also we're going to have to communicate with the members of the public what we're doing. I think that there are so many sources of information that sometimes it's very confusing to me anyway, and I'm sure it is confusing to some of the people in the community. I read an article today that the governor is saying that while the numbers have been bad over the last several weeks, even months, there is a little bit of a reason to be optimistic today because over the last couple of days, things seem to be plateauing out or plateauing. He, I think, said something about if a particular community can get off the watch list or whatever the list is called and get their rate of infection down to around 100 per 100,000, then he thought perhaps that would be an opportunity to open schools. I don't think we need to do it on a daily basis, but I do think we need almost on a regular basis and probably weekly report to the community what we think is going on. We're going to have to change it. It's not always going to be perfect information, but I think the community members will understand that and they would appreciate knowing what we think the next couple weeks hold for their children and for them.
Well, again, I think that the website is pretty clear about really what distance learning looks like. Our community meetings that Kim spoke about hopefully are well attended because I think they'll clarify that. We have a good partner in Westside Index, which is good about putting out information. And of course, then we rely on a lot of our Parent Square and Class Dojo. But we'll continue to put out as much information as we have available. Was there any other things that you'd like to see?
I'd personally like to see a sample lesson, online lesson. If there's the sample on YouTube or whatever, direct me there. I'd like to see a high school lesson and then a primary lesson, if possible.
Let's see what we can do about doing elementary and secondary for you, okay?
Yeah, it's not a big deal. I just like to, we talk about them, but I'd just like to see one.
Okay. I think Mr. Wallace, you had a comment.
Yeah, we had ordered some hotspots, and that's going to be important to getting our students hooked up that don't have online. Have those come in? Do we have them?
Yes, we do. I think we're expecting a few more actually too, but the ones we had originally ordered are in. And so part of what's happening is that when Chromebooks are being picked up on the 11th, some of those will be issued, and we'll also find out, because we'll be asking as they're picking it up, is there any issues that you have with connectivity at home, and maybe figure out if there's some that we still need to in addition to that.
Mr. Philpott, the Chromebooks that came back from the end of our school year, how did they come back as far as their maintenance and that? Were they pretty well handled and everything else? Because I know now they're cleaning them up correctly.
Well, our library media clerks actually picked them up 11 were delivered back that hadn't been turned in at the end of the year. We allowed some of them actually keep them if they chose to over the summer, so they could have some summer enrichment and to kind of bridge that gap that maybe they had. So we have been getting them in last week. Our library media clerks have been working through diligently trying to update those and not only to assure that they actually are working, but sanitize them so that then on the 11th they can be turned out. We also purchased some additional Chromebooks to kind of, in case there were any that were too many that were broken or something, that we would be able to fix that. So I think right now we have an adequate supply. High school, pretty much, they, other than the ninth graders coming in, our upper grades actually pretty much all kept their Chromebooks over the summer, and they're only going to come in with any ones that need to be fixed. There's really no reason to issue them back again. So
We don't have to add any new programs to them or licensing.
a lot of that gets pushed out over the internet, so it's not like it's a matter of bringing in the Chromebook. Now, sometimes we made it, if they don't have internet at home that's working, for instance, they can come to one of our parking lots or on campus, call ahead or something, and our Wi-Fi will work there for them. But originally when we did the survey about connectivity, we didn't have very many that actually, I want to say it ended up being around 45 that were having issues and stuff. So I think we've addressed most of those, but we're still, we may have a whole new issue that have come up. So we'll address that as they come in and try to alleviate that problem.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
No. May I ask for?
I have a comment, if you wouldn't
Yes.
mind, Mrs. Conforti. I'm going to be sending an email to all of you. CSBA has been doing some webinars, some of them on things like distance learning, some of it on like the budget. So I'll send you guys a email that I got from Steve Reed, our local rep. And if you guys have some interest on some education for yourself, it'll be there for you. You can either chime into the ones that are going to be in the future, or I believe you can watch the recordings of the ones that have passed.
With your meetings, Mr. Wallace, with the other districts and people that you have talked to on boards, how are they faring as far as setting up for the coming year? Have you heard from them?
Yeah, our administrators are complete studs, and it's amazing how much better off our kids are. I've got colleagues in Fresno that are putting packets on buses, that are dealing with no connectivity at home. Our kids are and a lot of districts that were not one-to-one, they didn't have nearly so really hats off to our administrators. Our kids are a lot better off than average. People are struggling with the budget. People are struggling with, Mr. Philpott mentioned how our enrollment is set at last year's enrollment, and that works great for places like this that are relatively stable or falling. If you're up in San Joaquin County, those guys where they're growing a school every year, they're hurting from that. The hot spots and whatnot. In fact, we met with Senator Caballero a little while ago, and that was a big part of what she was asking. Hey, are you guys getting these? Do we have them? She's looking hard at access And we have a lot of places as you get more rural than we are that just don't have any service, and the wireless providers really don't care very much. And so Senator Caballero is trying to light a fire under them. A lot of districts dealing with the same kids in classrooms. How are we going to take care of not just the staff kids, but also community kids? A lot of them looking through that same stuff. And I was a little surprised, but our asking teachers to come back into the classrooms is the standard in the area. San Joaquin, Fresno County, Madera County, the folks that are in this little section where I meet with them, that's pretty much the standard. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for giving that information out. Thank you.
Yeah, comment is, I don't know if Mr. Pruitt is online with us or not, but I just want to say the high school did a great job with graduation. You know, there was no incidences that I know of, you know, so I just thought it was nice. The kids enjoyed it, and, you know, they got, I think all had a good time with it.
I think as usual, if you take a look at our board, we allow each other to agree and to disagree for the better of our students, and we come to a consensus. It may not be exactly what we all want, but at least it's working. And I think our district is a model for other people to look at.
Yes, as Mr. Powell said, as the last student walked across, he said, "Does this mean that summer officially begins now?" So it was like a really strange year.
Yeah. I'd like to thank all the board members because I think you've done a fine job, and we'll continue to work at this as much as we can, and also for our administrators and for Mrs. Fox, who deals with many of us, especially me. Okay, may I ask for a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, may I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, and have a good week. Be safe, okay?
See ya.
Yeah.
We'll Zoom next week, huh?
5 o'clock next week, right?
Yes.
All right, see ya.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Randy. Have a
Bye.
good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.